Good morning, my dear friends. The Unit 21 Health and Disease. In the last video, we were discussing about the various types of abuses. In this video of the same lesson, Health and Disease, Unit number 21, we are going to discuss about various lifestyle diseases. First thing, what is called this lifestyle disease? Lifestyle diseases are disease or kind of disorder or impairment happens inside our body due to our lifestyle. Lack of exercise, sitting for a long time, and eating highly saturated food items. All these things leads to some certain disorders in our body. We call it as lifestyle diseases. Also, you should remember these lifestyle diseases are non-communicable disease. That means from one person to another person, it will not be transferred. It won't be transferred. It happens a disorder inside the body. Okay. Also, you should remember that this lifestyle disease will never transfer from one person to another person. That means it is a non-communicable disease or a disorder. So in this chapter, we are going to discuss about 4 lifestyle diseases. First one is diabetes, obesity, heart disease, and AIDS. How do we prevent them? What are the causes? What is the treatment? All these things we are going to discuss in this video. The first lifestyle disease we are going to discuss is the diabetes mellitus. Before we start this diabetes mellitus, we should have some understanding of how our digestive system and our systems that they absorb and handle the glucose. Whenever we take our food that contains carbohydrate, it will be digested and absorbed to the blood, the small intestine. That you have studied in the digestive system. Okay, after the absorption of this glucose, the carbohydrate, our body has an efficient system to handle this excess glucose or lack of glucose. That is what this pancreas is doing. Pancreas is an endocrine, also an exocrine gland that you have studied earlier. This endocrine part of the pancreas that contains alpha cells and beta cells. These beta cells will secrete insulin and alpha cells will secrete glucagon. You can understand the working mechanism of this pancreatic alpha and beta cells and their secretions, glucagon and insulin. These two hormones are regulating the insulin level inside our blood. For an example, let's say there are decreased level of glucose. Maybe you forgot to take your lunch or a breakfast, like something like that. Or you had a heavy exercise, so all the glucose is burned down so that the energy is produced. Now you have very decreased quantity of glucose in your blood. So when the blood circulates through pancreas, pancreas will sense that, okay, the glucose level is very less. Okay, take the glucose wherever it is stored in the liver. You know that glucose will be converted and stored in the liver in the form of glycogen, not glucose. The active form is glucose, whereas inactive or storage format is called glycogen. So this glycogen will be stored in the liver. So whenever there is a decrease in insulin, the stored insulin, that is the glycogen, will be converted back to glucose, so you get energy again without eating anything. That is the first case. So glycogen will be converted to glucose with the help of glucagon, which is a hormone produced by the pancreatic alpha cells. Let's say the next example, that you had your heavy meals now, so you have plenty of glucose inside your blood, which is not at all required right now. So what will do? The beta cells will produce a hormone called insulin. This insulin will actually convert the active glucose into inactive glycogen so that it will be stored in the cells, adipose tissues, or in the livers for storage purpose. So altogether, insulin and glucagon, which is produced from the pancreas, will control. If there is less, they will take it from the storage area. If it is excess, they will send it back to the storage area. So such a way, these two hormones are regulating the quantity of glucose which is present inside our blood. There should not be excess, there should not be less. Let's say there is an imbalance happens to this. That means insulin production, something happened to the pancreas or the alpha cells or beta cells, or the insulin production is not working, or even the insulin is produced, the target cells are not responding to it. All these kind of scenarios will lead to excess quantity of glucose in your blood, which is dangerous. We call it as situation is, this disorder is called it as diabetes. Let's look into the lifestyle diseases. The first one is diabetes mellitus. Before we start, let there be a clear understanding of what will happen to the glucose once it enters our blood. Let's say you have high level of glucose. Let's say for an example, you had your breakfast or meals just now. So you may have, after the digestion time, you may have huge quantity of glucose inside your blood. So what will happen? Beta cells, the endocrine part of the pancreas, they have both beta and alpha cells. These beta cells will be secreting insulin to convert the active glucose into the storage format. As glycogen, it will be stored in the liver as well as in adipose tissues. Let's say after some time, the glucose in the blood has reduced due to exercise or lack of breakfast or lunch or something like that. At that time, this pancreas will sense, okay, a low level of glucose in the blood. That will trigger the alpha cells. In turn, it will produce glucagon, a hormone that just like insulin, but it will convert the stored glucose, that means the glycogen, into glucose. So both the actions of insulin and glucagon, they are just maintaining the blood glucose levels. That is the first point you should remember. In this, let's say there is any type of imbalance happens to this insulin or glucagon, will lead to diabetes. The diabetes mellitus, if you look at the common concern of this disorder is increased blood glucose. This is happening due to the insufficient or failure of insulin, which is a hormone secreted by the pancreas, endocrine part, the beta cells. And coming to the types of diabetes, they are type 1 and type 2. Type 1 is insulin dependent diabetes mellitus. Next one is non-insulin dependent diabetes mellitus. And the first case is a very rare one. That means that 10 to 20% of the entire diabetes is only this insulin dependent diabetes mellitus. And this happens in juvenile onset. That means in a younger age, below 20 also, this type of diabetes can be started. This happens due to the sudden destruction of the beta cells. That means this can even be dangerous. All of a sudden the glucose level goes so high due to the lack of insulin, because the beta cells were destroyed. Even a person with a normal body weight also can get this type 1 diabetes. And insulin administration is through injection is compulsory in this case. And coming to the type 2 non-insulin dependent diabetes mellitus, this is most of the common diabetes which is what we see around us. And 80 to 90% of the diabetes cases are the type 2 diabetes. This happens in the maturity onset. That means above 30 years only normally these cases or types of non-insulin dependent diabetes mellitus happens. And this happens triggered mostly in the case of obese people who are little fat. These chances are higher. And the target cells are not responding. In this case, it is not because of the destruction of beta cells or lack of insulin. Instead, the target cells, the adipose cells or liver cells will not respond to that, so that it will keep storing it. So storage part will be stopped, so that the blood glucose level will be continuously increased. That is the general category of type 2 diabetes mellitus. This type 2 can be controlled through diet, exercise, or with the help of some medicines. And coming to the next one, what are the symptoms of this diabetes mellitus? First one is hyperglycemia, increased blood glucose content. Polyuria means excess loss of water through urine. Polydipsia is the excess thirst, because due to polyuria you are losing lot of water content, so you will be definitely so thirsty. And coming to the next one, glucoseuria, that means presence of glucose in the urine. That is another symptom of the diabetes. The next one is polyphagia, that means increased hunger. You will feel hungry always because you are losing water as well as glucose through urine. So in that case you will be feeling hungry all the time. Next one is loss of weight, because you are losing so much of carbohydrates, which is the energy supplier of our body. That means definitely there will be loss of weight of that particular individual. This is a general cases of diabetes mellitus. The next one is prevention and control of this diabetes. In this, let's say you don't take it as a simple thing, because this diabetes is the 7th largest, biggest cause of death throughout the world, and 1 out of 8 people in India are diabetic. Out of 130 crores, you consider 1 out of 8 Indians are diabetic. And normally throughout the world, it happens 55, the age and average to start the onset of diabetes, whereas in India, we have the onset of diabetes happens in the year of 40. So imagine 15 years earlier, when we compare with a foreigner, we get diabetic. So when you should diagnose it, let's say the fasting blood glucose level is 140 milligram per deciliters, or a random check if it exceeds 200 milligrams per deciliter. If this is the case in a frequent 1 or 2 times, if you notice this along with the symptoms, definitely you should go and diagnose for diabetic. And what are the diet control you can go for is low carbohydrate containing food with high fibers, that inclusive of whole grains, millets, leafy vegetables, and unpolished rice. So unpolished rice, this is the major concern, because we actually prefer to eat completely polished rice. That is in our diet. Every day we are eating in the form of dosa, idli, rice, whatever it is, the major content is the rice. So once we polish this rice completely, we are actually losing the nutrition and fibers. So we actually should practice taking rice in little unpolished condition, or that is the one. And no saturated fats should be used. That means highly saturated fat fast food items you should avoid. And your diet should contain 50 to 55% of carbohydrates, 10 to 15% of proteins, 15 to 25% of fat. That is mostly high density lipids should be included. And the next stage of management, apart from the diet management, insulin administration can help us for the better management of diabetes. Also physical activities, exercises, also education, awareness also will cause the reduction of diabetic patients in our country. The next lifestyle disease we are going to discuss is obesity. Obesity is nothing but abnormal increase in the body weight. What are the reasons? What are the preventive measures? That is what we are going to discuss next. So how do we check? In fact, you all should do this at your home. That is called body mass index. It actually says whether you are overweight, underweight, obese, which are stage 1 or 2, like that. How do we do this BMI? That means take your weight in kilograms divided by your height square. That you should take the height of you in meters. This is the calculation you should do. And after this, let's say you're getting a value between 18.5 to 25 kilograms per meter square. And the value is between 18.5 and 25. Okay, normal, super. But if it is below 18, you're underweight, you have to gain the weight. If it is above 25, you are overweight, or coming to 30 and all is obese 1, 2 and all these very dangerous conditions which will invite diabetes, hypertension, cardiovascular disease, stroke. All these things will be coming in one by one. It will come if you don't control your weight. Coming to the next one, what are the major causes? Some of the cases are genetic. Genetically, the people will be obese. Lack of physical activities. That means maybe your job title will be seated in a single place, or as a student you don't go outside and play, you always with the mobile, and it's mostly inactive mode of lifestyles will increase the weight of your body. And overeating and eating all saturated food items, fast food items, all these will increase the weight of your body, that will make you obese. And what will happen if you are obese? Obesity will lead to hypertension, increased blood pressure, diabetes, heart diseases. Of course, hypertension and diabetes will also lead to heart diseases. And coming to how can we prevent it? With a good diet. You prefer low calorie diet because every food items, they have a calorie value for that. In fact, in a general, 1.6 K to 3 K, that means 1600 to 3000 kilocalories is only needed for an average human being a day. But if you are eating more than that in a day, basically that is going to store inside your body, that's going to make you obese. So always consider calorie consciousness is required whenever you purchase or eat something. And physical exercise, daily morning 20 minutes or evening 20 minutes, any type of physical activities, maybe cycling or walking or running, can help you to reduce the obese condition. And coming to yoga and meditation. Okay, how come yoga and meditation will help you to reduce your weight? Is because when you are tensed, it is the habit of human being that when we are tensed or under stress conditions, we tend to eat. Am I saying the correct things? You may wonder that if you are stressed, if you are angry, or not kind of angry, if you are stressed or tensed, you tend to eat something. You check it next time. That means if you are able to do some yoga and meditation, or normally your stress condition will come down, so that will lead to reduction in stress related overeating. That is why it is preferred as physical exercise, and yoga and meditation can reduce your obese conditions. The next lifestyle disease we are going to discuss is the heart disease. You know very well, diabetes and obesity can lead to heart disease, generally be called as cardiovascular disease, CVDs. That means diseases related to the heart and the blood vessels. How it is happening with the help of heart disease is happening because of the obesity and other things is deposition of LDL, low density lipids, in the blood vessels. You know the arteries that carries oxygenated blood, that they have the elastic nature. Let's say this LDL is keep depositing in the inside walls of these arteries, this elasticity will be lost. Also the diameter of the inside hole pipeline will also be reduced. That means the blood has to pump through a narrow hole rather than the usual one. So heart has to work extra load. So that and permanent blockade can also leads to damage. Lack of supply of oxygen to that particular cells will lead to death of that particular tissue where the artery is supplying the oxygen. And that particular situation, partial or deposition of cholesterol and materials on the inside walls of the arteries are called atherosclerosis. This can lead to ischemia, that means lack of blood supply to the heart tissues, which is very dangerous. Also, it can lead further, its deposition can lead to myocardial infarctions, that means stoppage of oxygen supply because complete blood vessels is stopped or blocked. In that case, the severe heart failure can happen that may even leads to death. And remember, all these things are happening or triggered or initiated just because of the bad habits we have. Bad food habits, overweight, lack of exercise, all these are causing these type of diseases. Also remember that most of this disease, heart disease, diabetes, obesity, all these things happening to us only because of our ignorance or carelessness towards our healthy diet and physical activities. So the next point is also that says that this heart disease can eventually leads to failure in the kidney and brain, ultimately leads to the stroke, destruction of nerve cells in the brain that leads to memory loss or even death can happen due to that. And what are the major causes of this heart disease? It is genetical and complete excess intake of saturated fat fast food items, smoking, drinking and continuous stress can also leads to heart disease. And lack of physical activity also leads to heart disease. These are the major causes of heart disease. Let's look into the aspects how we can prevent the heart diseases through the diets. First thing, that means no excess calories. So through the diet we can control the heart disease. No, don't take excess calories more than that you require it. And low saturated food should be there. You don't keep on adding saturated foods to our diet, and fast food items you should avoid. And include more fiber diet. The fiber containing fruits, whole grains, vegetables, all these things you should include in your diet. Physical activity is must. 20 minutes 2 times a day, morning or evening, that will burn the calories which may be excess in your body, so that won't be stored, so the body will not go to overweight, leads to hypertension, leads to heart diseases or diabetes, which will not be there. Coming to the next one, you should avoid smoking and drinking. In the case of adults, if they have the practice of these things, they should stop it. These are the things that we have to discuss about heart disease in the lifestyle disease. The next disease that caused due to our lifestyle is cancer. Cancer is nothing but abnormal, uncontrolled cell division that happens inside our tissues. These uncontrolled growth will go and affect the normal functioning of our body and other tissues. That will eventually lead to malfunctioning of that particular organ or something like that. It will happen. And also the danger part of the cancer is the property called metastasis, a property of the cancer cells to detach itself and travel throughout our body through the blood and attach somewhere, or it can call anywhere, and start infecting there, making a new growth there. So this is a dangerous aspect of cancer. And coming to the types of cancers, majorly into 3: carcinomas, sarcomas and leukemia. Carcinoma is mostly 80% of the cancer is carcinomas. They are epithelial related or glandular, the glands of our body. Sarcomas are connective tissues and muscular tissue related, that is just only 1%. And leukemia is the WBC cell or bone marrow related cancers. In that case, uncontrolled WBCs will be formed, that is leads to leukemia, which is a dangerous aspect. Looking at the next point, what makes this cancer inside our body? That is carcinogenic agents, the agents that causes or initiate or triggers uncontrolled cell division inside our body. They are physical agents, chemical agents, radiation, also biological agents. You will see them one by one. The physical agents that may trigger the cancer inside our body is smoking and excess exposure of sunlight to the direct skin. And chemicals such as nicotine, the dyes coming out of industries, pesticides, all these can induce cancer. And coming to radiation, X-rays, gamma rays, UV rays, and a prolonged exposure of all these can trigger the cancer inside our body. And biological agents such as virus like human papilloma virus, this can also induce the cancer, uncontrolled cell division inside our body. Coming to the next one, what are the treatment for cancer? First thing is surgery. Surgically we will remove the cancer affected part of the body. And radiation can be given to the cells which they don't have any control over their cell division. In such a way we can kill all those cells. And chemotherapy, in this chemicals are used to target these cells which they are undergoing with no control over their cell division. And immunotherapy, this is the area where still researches are going on. Some part of biological agents, we will induce the immunity to find out this special cells alone and kill this alone. Just like we have a bacterial or viral infection, this unwanted cells of our own cells will be recognized as foreign contaminants and will be treated with our own immunity. This is the safest part. It is still under research. And how can we prevent it? That's the next point in this lifestyle caused disease. Prevention can be done with the help of awareness. You should have very good awareness among the people, and we should educate them regarding this. These are all the general aspects with the people should have a good awareness. And avoid pollutants. In the pollutants in the food item, junk food, and smoking. And you should also consider early determination of cancer tissues can give better treatment than the later stages. So these are all the aspects with the cancer. This is caused due to our lifestyle. Remember, the packed processed food items, fast food items, they contain chemicals for their texture and for their long storage. They may have some chemicals which may be carcinogenic. So control your junk food eating. So this may be little costlier in the future. The last disease we are discussing in this lesson is AIDS, acquired immunodeficiency syndrome. December 1st is the World's AIDS Day to make the awareness and other things. And it is caused by a virus called human immunodeficiency virus. We call it as HIV. And this virus actually attacks the lymphocytes, the WBC. You know, the WBCs are the soldiers, the defense mechanism of our body. Once we lose this WBC and it suppresses the entire immunity, what will happen? We are prone to all the type of infections. You can imagine there is no immunity. That means all the viral, fungal, bacterial, all the type of infections can occur inside our body, which some of them will be very dangerous also. And the transmission of an HIV virus will not happen in a person just by a physical contact. It will not be transferred. Instead, it will be transferred with the sexual contact, and the needles or the blade, shaving blade, are all used by the people, and blood transfusion from an infected person to a normal person, and mother to the child. When the child is inside the mother's womb, it can be transferred from the mother to the child through the placenta. These are the modes of transmission of AIDS. And coming to the symptoms of AIDS, there are no specific symptoms because since this virus suppresses our entire immune system, we become immunodeficient. That means any type of infection can happen to us. It is not specific that we get some type of disease alone. No, all the type of possible disease we will get it. And diagnosis of this is done by Western blot and ELISA, a test which is enzyme linked immunosorbent assay. That these are the two tests that we can diagnose the AIDS. And what are this treatment? Treatment, to be frank, there is no cure for AIDS till now, but still some retroviral means HIV virus is an RNA virus that has a genetic material RNA. So antiretroviral medicines can suppress the effects of HIV, and also immunostimulative. That means since we lose immunity, some type of immunostimulating therapy also will make the patient's life little more excess. A prolonged life can be acquired, not the cure so far. Okay, coming to the next one, how can we prevent is screening of blood before blood transfusion, and this usage of disposable needles and blades, and safe sex practices, and awareness among the people. All these can bring down the count of HIV or AIDS in our society. So let me conclude this one. So far what we have discussed in this entire chapter, health and disease, we were concerned about the abuse towards ourselves, to the society, to the children. All these things we discussed in the first part. Second part, we discussed about the lifestyle disease. Both the things are something bad we bring to us by ourselves. These lifestyle diseases bring to us either by ignorance or by lifestyle changes what we adopted. And whatever knowledge you gain from the studies, don't keep it with yourself. There may be some other person who is actually required. They may not be knowing all these things. You should definitely give this knowledge what you gained to others also. Don't worry, the more you give, the more you will get. So that is the end of the lesson. Take good care of your health and see you at school. Hoping that I'll meet you all in the school, and thanks for listening to the class. Thank you.